So let's start with the answers to the Unit 10 post-lesson assessment. This is the youth course, total compensation, types of employment. First question, how do you calculate the total compensation when there are benefits? So benefits is essentially paying with services rather than money. When you estimate these, you're going to need to calculate the total compensation for a full year and not month to month because most benefits reset each year. So your total compensation will equal your base pay plus your benefits. So that would be your PTO value, additional pay, employer contributions, and saved money from other perks. And we're going to go into these in the subsequent questions. So the next question is about base pay. Is the base pay the same as gross pay or net pay? Well, the base pay is the amount of pay that the boss pays you. And the gross amount is the full amount that the boss pays you. Now, some of it will be withheld for taxes and benefits, which will leave you with net pay. Net pay is what you take home. So when you're doing your total compensation calculation, you are using gross pay as a representation of your base pay, not the net pay. Next question, how do you convert net pay into gross pay? Because let's face it, on your check, you're going to be seeing your net pay. You need to calculate your gross pay. So if you earn a salary, then it's pretty easy because your salary is your gross pay. But if you earn hourly wages, you have to take your hours per week, multiply it by 52 for the 52 weeks in a year, and multiply that by your hourly wages. This scales your hourly pay to a yearly gross pay. What is PTO and how do you calculate its worth? PTO is basically the boss paying you not to work. If you work salary, it's usually built into your salary. With hourly wages, you must first calculate the PTO like you would for working hours by converting it from weekly working hours and wages to yearly PTO compensation. So again, you multiply the PTO hours times 52 weeks for a year, and then the hourly wage amount that you would be getting. How do you factor bonuses and commissions into your total compensation formula? So this is things like additional pay. Additional pay is, these are things like bonuses, which can be hard to predict, but if you have one that you know is coming for the year, you would throw that into the compensation. And commissions, which is basically performance-based incentives, those are a little bit harder to calculate. So if you've been in the job for months or years, you have a general sense of what your personal commissions are, and you can get an average of your productivity commissions and use that for your calculation. Now, on the other hand, if you are new to the job, you need to kind of ask the other employees, what do they make from commissions? And then scale that up to a yearly commission total to add to your total compensation package. What about factoring in employer contributions? So some of them are easy. On a health insurance, there will be a W-2 tax form that will state your employer's contribution to health insurance. HR also will give you that information if you ask them. You can do the same exact thing with vision, dental, and retirement insurance. Now, remember, your compensation total only adds in the employer's contribution. Remember, the rest of that is still in your base pay, which is your gross pay. That's why we use gross pay as the base pay. So you're only factoring in what your employer contributes to the health insurance, the dental, and the vision. Now, there's freebies that the employer gives you, like childcare, tuition assistance. You would calculate what it would be worth if you didn't have the benefit. In other words, what would you have to spend if you didn't have that benefit? And then you add that into the total compensation equation. Moving on, let's talk about benefits and drawbacks of various types of employment. So what are the benefits and drawbacks of a full-time employment? Full-time employment generally is going to have a very stable salary. There are usually the highest level of benefits granted to a full-time employee, and you are more likely to get selected for promotions than a part-timer or contract worker. The biggest disadvantage is you have a high number of work hours. Oftentimes, there is no overtime pay for full-time employment, and as a result of that, you sacrifice in free time to gain stability. Now, what are the benefits and drawbacks of part-time employment? Well, the benefits are you will work fewer hours with more flexibility. You are avoiding the drawbacks of contract work, which we'll get into in the next question, and can often lead to a more flexible job situation, which is a little bit easier if you are simultaneously in school or you have children to take care of. The biggest disadvantage is that you're going to have less total compensation due to fewer hours and because you're paid hourly rather than salaried. So the pay can be unsteady because the hours can differ from week to week. There are also fewer benefits. Sometimes you will need 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet, which will negate the free time bonus that you would normally get from part-time employment. Now, what are the benefits and the drawbacks to contract work? Contract work is work focused only on a specific project for a specific time frame without officially being employed by the company. In other words, it's freelancing, gig work, or consulting. The biggest advantage is if you are a contract worker, you are your own boss. You are free to choose your own working environment. The biggest disadvantage, though, is you don't get the benefits of the company. You don't get things like unemployment insurance. If you happen to not have a job, you could be in pretty serious trouble from a cash flow standpoint. And there's no tax withholding. You'll have to take care of that on your own.